Good morning on this Sunday, August 1st, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. We lead this week with COVID. Mask mandates are back as elected officials urge unvaccinated Georgians to get the shots. Also, Georgia Republican leaders make the first move to possibly take over Fulton County elections. And a new mayoral poll in the city of Atlanta shows the early leaders, but also a lot of undecided voters. Brian Robinson is in for Phil. Bobby Capel is in for Kathy. Theron and Martha are also here. It's good to be back. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Governor Kemp says no to mandates, but the mayors of Atlanta and Savannah are telling folks to mask up even if you're vaccinated. Now, this all comes as COVID cases are on the rise thanks to the Delta variant. Let's discuss. Martha, we'll start with you. Just kind of want to get your thoughts because it almost feels like we're going backwards.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, their Delta variant cases are up, but they're not at the levels they were in November and December. Look, I almost died 8 months ago from something that wasn't COVID. Okay, there are many more things out there that are more concerning. And you put in a mask mandate that's unenforceable. The Atlanta Police Department's down 250 or more police officers, and now they're going to be tasked with giving tickets to people who aren't wearing masks. You should wear a mask if you're not vaccinated. If you are vaccinated, you should go on with your life with common precautions.
Theron, I want to take a look at what the governor talked about this week. He said, the biggest obstacle to getting more people vaccinated and the country returning to normal is the mixed messages from Washington, D.C. and those with partisan agendas. Now, I would say that, some of this mixed messaging is coming from the CDC, which really has had a communications problem. I mean, I read where they are urgently or really absolutely urging people to get the vaccine. But then the CDC director said we could be 2 variants away from the vaccine not even working. So to me, that doesn't give folks much confidence to get out and get shots. And on top of that, they have to really mask up in some places. So what about all this mixed messaging and the miscommunication coming from the CDC and ultimately the administration?
Yeah, I don't think there's any mixed messages coming from the administration, Lori. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris has made it their top priority to not only tell people through televised town halls, through emails, through social media. I mean, they are on a bus tour encouraging everyone in the United States of America, particularly in places that don't have high vaccine rates, to get the vaccine. So there's no mixed messages from the administration. Now, as far as the CDC, I think that's fair. I mean, there's definitely been some guidance that have been put out, but ultimately people need to go get their vaccination shots. And then as far as, the governor, and we said this on this show, I think the governor is going to be judged and he's going to ultimately be looked at from voters. How did he roll out the vaccine, but also what did he do to make sure that people in all of Georgia got the vaccine shots? And I know that he's been trying. I know we set up many locations across the state. And so I think you can't blame this on the administration. You can't blame this on totally on the CDC. I think it all comes down to personal responsibility. People have got to get this shot because it not only protects you, but it also protects others. And I think we've got to figure out some type of hip, cool way, maybe where rural voters can feel that an influencer, he or she, can actually encourage them to get it and really push back on some of the lies and the myths about the shot. And I think that that's something that's been spread on social media that everyone can work together to push back on.
Yeah, I mean, we disagree on a lot on the show, but we've all been vaccinated. That's one thing I can say for sure. But Martha, I'll get to you in just another second. But Brian, Mayor Bottoms defended her decision on the indoor mask mandate, saying public health experts overwhelmingly agree, and data has proved that wearing a face covering helps slow the spread of this deadly virus. Your thoughts?
Well, it's unenforceable, and she pretty much acknowledges that in the statement that she put out. As Martha said, the police don't have the manpower to enforce this, and so what we're asking is for small business people to enforce it, which is not tenable. It's not what small businesses want to be doing, particularly when many of them are still getting back on their feet from the last year. We have been told throughout all this time that if you get a vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask. I've gotten a vaccine, just as you said, Lori. I don't feel like this should be imposed on me. Now, yes, some people are getting breakthrough cases where they're getting sick despite having the vaccine. But overwhelmingly, those people aren't so sick that they're hospitalized or die. So that becomes a calculated risk that people can make. I think the bottom line here is we need to continue to encourage everybody to get the vaccine. That is what it's going to take to move past this. Nobody wants a mask mandate. Nobody wants us to have another lockdown, which I don't think is going to happen. So the best way to do it, the most patriotic thing that we can do right now is go get a vaccine.
Bobby, you have young kids, so what are the schools to do? We know that there are some parents who are protesting the mask mandates because a lot of the data shows that COVID doesn't impact kids as seriously as adults. Of course, there are, exceptions to every rule, but some schools are making masks optional. So your thoughts on all of this?
Well, first of all, I agree with Brian on his statement for everybody to go get the vaccine. He's absolutely right. And I agree with the other Brian, Governor Kemp, on one thing when he says that this is becoming a partisan issue and that there are mixed messages, but they're not coming necessarily so much from the CDC, which is actually evaluating science. They're coming from people in Washington who have decided to take this up as their case, their hill that they're going to die on, so to speak, and that they've decided they are not going to be, they're going to be against the vaccines. They're going to be putting out disinformation, telling people that they're getting microchipped, et cetera. I mean, it has gotten out of control. And the whole reason that we as parents have to deal with this school issue coming up in the fall now in a week, once Fulton County goes back to school, for example, is the fact that certain people have decided to not get vaccinated. It is selfish to do that. It is not patriotic, and it is now impacting people like my children. So now my kids are going to have to go to school in a mask because that some selfish adults who have chosen not to get the vaccine have enabled a Delta variant to come up, and there will be many more variants that continue to spread if we continue to not be a vaccinated population. And now it is my kids and your kids that are going to pay the price for that, and that's not right.
But Martha, some of those selfish people that Bobby refers to are teachers.
Well, that's true. The Atlanta public school system teacher vaccination rate is right at about 18%. I mean, that's a big problem. But I will say an example of this mixed messaging just happened on our program. And my good friend Theron is absolutely right when he says the vaccines are about protecting yourself and others. But if you get the vaccine, you're the responsible person. Now the CDC is telling you you need to mask up too. That's a mixed message. And I know he didn't intend it that way, and he was giving the best information that was out there, but that's the kind of mixed message that people are pushing back against. And it's a challenge. It is a big challenge, but we're going to have to see what happens. Teachers and a lot of first responders don't want to get the vaccine. We need to really work on the messaging on all of this. And it can be traced back to the campaign trail when President Biden and Vice President Harris were saying, if Donald Trump tells you not to get the vaccine, I'm not going to do it. It started way back then, and it has continued.
Theron, I see your hand up.
That is right.
Yeah, my good friend Martha, definitely, we have to respectfully disagree on this one. The message is really clear, Lori. If you need to get the vaccine, I think we agree on all that, right? And the vaccine does not prevent you from being exposed to the Delta variant and to COVID, right? But what it does, it prevents you from, hopefully not dying, right? And so what I'm saying to you is that when the CDC came out and said you can wear you don't have to wear a mask when you have the vaccines, what's happened over time is that things have evolved, and now what they're saying is that even if you are vaccinated, you got to protect yourselves from others who refuse to get vaccinated or actually probably is carrying the variant and don't even know it. But I want to say this about Mayor Bottoms. I think at the end of the day, look, it's an inconvenience for me. I'm getting comfortable with not wearing masks, but I have to trust the mayor. I have to trust the science. And I think that she did the right thing by making sure that when you're indoors, not while you're eating indoors, but when you're indoors, a public facility, and you're not eating or drinking, you need to wear your mask. And I think that businesses have got to basically communicate with City Hall and come up with some type of innovative approach to this, because we can't not mask our way out of this. We got to mask our way out of this. We got to continue to wear our masks. And then the longer we resist this, Lori, we're going to be dealing with this, and we're going to have more people dying. We'll have more people going to the hospital.
Yeah, I agree. You can't mask yourself away from this. But Martha, one last question. One last to you to get your comment on this one. Go ahead.
as we know, if we're explaining we're losing, and this is an example of the mixed messaging, we need to be clear on the messaging. I've already called my pharmacist about when the booster is ready, and I'll be taking the booster when it's ready.
All right. We'll be talking about this in the upcoming months, unfortunately. So thank you all. Coming up, Georgia Republicans make a move to look into the Fulton County elections chief. We'll discuss straight ahead.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Fulton County Chairman Rob Pitt says he would fight any attempted takeover of the county's elections management after some Republican leaders in the Georgia House and Senate called for a performance review of the county elections chief. Brian, I'll start with you. Is this a first step in the state taking over Fulton County elections?
Well, it is a first step. This is what the law calls for, that they ask for a performance review, an audit, if you want to call it that. But one thing I want to caution here is this is a long process. I think Democrats are making it sound like Republicans are going to wave a magic wand and they're going to take over the Fulton County election system. That's not the case. This goes on for months and months. So the idea that Republicans are going to go in and change the last election's outcome with this process is insane. That is not what the process allows for. It allows for due process. The county will be able to go to court to prevent it. So there are a lot of safeguards in this, but the bottom line is no one disagrees that Fulton County has a long history of incompetent election administration. If you look at what Democrats were complaining about last year, long lines, not getting absentee ballots out in time, where was that happening? In Republican counties? Nope. It was happening in Democrat counties, namely Fulton County. So that is Democratic incompetent election suppression, voter suppression. So what Republicans ironically are trying to do here is to clean up those systems and allow access for Democratic voters in Democratic counties so that their votes are counted and the system runs smoothly.
Bobby, let's talk about this. It is a move making national headlines, and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger says Fulton has been failing at elections for decades, and this is now a way to ensure fair elections.
Well, you'll have to forgive Democrats if we don't trust Republicans to run the elections in this state after they tried to steal the presidential election in this last round. Brian, I don't think anybody's worried about changing the election results last time, except for folks on your side of the aisle. We're concerned about them changing election results in the next election. And the fact that in that voter suppression bill that went through, everyone was talking about passing out water in line being banned. And that was kind of a distraction while they said that the state legislature could then take over up to 3 counties in the state. And I'm sure that the day is long that one of those counties would be Fulton, one of those counties would be Gwinnett, and the counties where all the Democrats happen to be will be the ones they take over. It is ridiculous. If people don't like the election officials in the county they live in, we have something called elections. You can go vote those people out. But we certainly don't need a takeover of partisan Republicans on the election system. It's the last thing holding up our democracy. Did you see Marjorie Taylor Greene this week running around saying she's backing the insurrectionists? No, I mean, this is what it's come to. You guys have got, you talk about a messaging problem. It's out of control.
All right, Martha, over to you on this.
Oh my God! I have to respond to this, Laura, for just a second here.
Go ahead, Brian.
Democrats can't say that they don't want Republicans taking over county elections. At the same time, they're saying in Washington that the federal government needs to take over state elections, something that is written into our U.S. Constitution. That is the purview of the states. The Democrats have the messaging problem. They're not consistent. They're either for takeovers of processes they don't like, or they're not. The thing is, they're fine with it as long as it is the deep state bureaucrats in the Department of Justice reaching into state authority and telling them how to run elections.
Bobby, I'll let you respond.
First of all, there is no deep state. I hate to break that to you, but I'll also say
there isn't a DOJ, buddy, and it is one-sided.
I agree, but that gets swung each way. Look at the Georgia Ethics Commission and how they used their tool against Stacey Abrams to try and mess with her organizations, et cetera, just to get political dirt on a potential opponent for Governor Kemp. So, I mean, this is a two-way street. It shouldn't be that way. That is banana republic type of stuff. But unfortunately, this is where America seems to be sliding. I think we all need to come together as Republicans and Democrats and say, can we not agree on the one thing that matters here? Yes, election integrity, preserving our democracy, and that the will of the people should be served. That is what sets us apart from the rest of the world.
Martha's had her hand up for a long time. Go ahead.
Well, if Republicans are trying to suppress Democratic votes in Georgia, they're doing a pretty bad job of it over the last 10 or 15 years. So I wouldn't use that as the argument. You can't argue suppression and then have record turnouts for the last several elections. But I would just tell you to look down south to Florida. They had the same kind of process in place where they ultimately ended up taking over Broward and Dade County. And guess what? In the 2020 election, they counted 11 million votes by 9/30. Okay, this process will work if we allow it to work out and not do the chicken little sky is falling at every step of the way.
Darren, weigh in here, especially when it comes to Fulton County and what's happening, at the State House and the State Senate.
Well, I think Bobby's absolutely right. The problem that Republicans have is that they spent few months sort of saying that there was all this election fraud and that the election was stolen from President Trump, right? And so they went down on the sword with that. So to come back now, and my good friend Brian wants to say, oh, we're here to save the day, to make sure that everything goes correct. I mean, people are not going to forget the lies that the Republicans spread at the end of last year and even in January. But I think the one thing we got to really point out on this show, Laura, is the strides that Fulton County has made. Now, want to be very clear. There have been some challenges over the years, but you got to give the election chief and Chairman Rob Pitt some credit. Look at what they did around adding 2 mobile centers to go around the county. They added drop boxes. They worked with State Farm Arena and Mercedes-Benz, the Atlanta Falcons and Atlanta Hawks. That actually was something that was started here in Georgia, and everyone, all the sports teams, basically emulated what Fulton County was doing. They hired 3,500 new election workers. Laura, you remember when we were pleading on this show, encouraging people to start what they were doing to go basically sign up to be election poll workers. And so a lot of these challenges were solved in this last election. And I definitely think that we learned a lot from the primary. And so the problem is with this is that they've removed the Secretary of State, who has been elected by the people of Georgia, who constitutionally is supposed to be doing this job. But instead, this Senate Bill 202 allows these, I think, 2 state representatives and 2 state senators to basically say, we have a problem, and now we're going to go take it over. Therein lies, I think, the legal challenge to Senate Bill 202. And then ultimately, I think Democrats are right to push back on this because it is a takeover.
All right, we'll leave it there, everybody. Thank you. Coming up, a new poll out in the Atlanta mayor's race has a familiar face on top, but it's early. We'll discuss straight ahead.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
A new poll out from Survey USA shows former Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed out in front of the pack at 17%, followed by Felicia Moore at 10%. But what's really telling in this poll, I think, 40% of voters are still undecided. Bobby, with the number of candidates in this race, this one's likely headed for a runoff, but not many of us are surprised that Reed's out in front. He has the name ID and so far the most money.
Yep, and those are the 2 most important factors in the first round of one of these votes, because you're going to have everybody else. I mean, I think we can at this point say comfortably that Kasim Reed is the favorite to make one of the 2 runoff spots. The other runoff spot is completely up for grabs at this point, as far as I can see. Surveying the field, none of these people have a whole lot of name ID, so it's going to come down to who's got the most money that can boost that name ID, and then who can get their message out the best. Now, I don't see a lot of attacks coming on Kasim Reed in that first round because there's not going to be, you look at the name ID of each one of these people, they need to build their own. They need to get themselves recognized in Atlanta, and they're going to have to do that through telling their own story. Now, you get to a runoff, and then it's a totally different story, because then it's mano a mano. You're going to see some of these old stories come up, and they will be a problem.
Brian, crime is still the #1 issue. Another violent week and a horrific murder in Piedmont Park. I mean, you would think every candidate would be out in front of this, holding press conferences at the scenes of these crimes, saying, just enough is enough. Are we hearing enough from the candidates on crime?
I think we will once you start seeing money spent in this campaign. What messaging we have seen has been centered on crime. Even Sharon Gay, who was further down in the poll, she held a news conference sometime this summer with her new public safety advisor. That was obviously the main point of Kasim Reed's rollout. You saw Felicia Moore make that the centerpiece of her campaign as well. I think we're going to hear it more once there's money behind these messages. The polling is, as you said, what we would expect. When Kasim got into the race, I happened to be on the Georgia Gang with you that week, Lori, and I said, this guy's going to be the front runner. He's an immediate contender. He's going to be taken seriously. And people are nostalgic for the good old days of the Kasim Reed administration when our economy was booming and our streets were safe. And that's going to overshadow some of those ethical issues that, as Bobby said, will come to light and will be a major push of the other candidates. But right now, people are scared, and that is a very huge motivator in an election. So my comments for him were so strong that many members of the media were calling me that next week, assuming I was his spokesperson. I wasn't, and I'm not. I was telling the truth, and I think this poll backs up what I was saying.
Theron, what do you think on that take? Is this some of the nostalgia, the good old days, that way on the minds of voters?
I got to remember to smile, right? People told me to smile more on the show, Lori, when I'm about to say. No, listen, I think let me get to the poll, right? I think I'm the only person on the panel that's actually, led the efforts to elect 2 mayors in the city of Atlanta. And I would tell you, poll numbers in July, they don't matter. And I think what you're seeing is that you're not seeing really a lot of candidates, Lori, embrace these poll numbers. Now, their supporters are, because what these candidates know is that tomorrow, Phil Kent can do a poll from Inside Advantage. Bobby Cable can do a poll. I'm sure, other news stations are going to do polls, right? And they may have a total different, sort of outcome. I saw a poll on Twitter this week that had a total different, random order of people who were leading. And so these public polls right now don't matter. So the voters are not paying that close of attention. You can skew it. What is going to matter is what these candidates are going to have to do around crime. We are in a crisis in the city of Atlanta. I am fed up, Lori. And listen, if I was running for mayor right now, I would have probably did my best to try to hire you. We would have worked out some type of deal. And I know you would have made me actually speak up more. And not only just speak up, but actually come with a long-term systemic long-term systemic solution to this problem. And yeah, going out to the scene is one thing, but I just don't sense the passion. I think that Democrats need to realize also, Lori, lastly, if I get this point in, is that we're about to let the Republicans hijack the crime issue from us, right? Because they want everybody to believe that we defund the police, and that is absolutely not true. All of our Democratic leaders in the state of Georgia do not support defunding the police. We've got to talk about crime more. Don't get me wrong. I said this before. It's the 3 C's. It's crime, it's COVID, and credibility. But Democrats, we better wake up, because the Republicans are going to try to use this issue to divide us in 2021, and they're going to try to use this issue to try to win in 2022. So we've got to be more bold and more outspoken to crime in the city and quite frankly across the region, and we got to do something about it.
I'm glad to see some folks are really fired up on crime. Thanks, Theron. And Martha, I'll go over to you for the last word on this.
Well, of course, crime is going to be an issue, and the reason why Republicans, in Theron's words, may hijack the issue is because they have credibility on it. They're the ones that have talked about supporting the police, and you may say that Democrats aren't the ones that said defund the police, but the Atlanta Police Department is down 200 to 250 people. They feel like they're not being supported. They feel like they're being defunded. So whoever gets this issue is going to have the credibility on it.
And unfortunately, I got to leave it there. But, we'll be talking about this a lot in the upcoming months.
So a lot.
No worries. All right, everybody. Coming up, we'll have winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
Let's start off by sending our thoughts and prayers to Channel 2's Jovita Moore, who announced this week that she is battling a very aggressive form of brain cancer. And as someone who has worked with Jovita for years, I can tell you she's a fighter. She's a beautiful mom, and inside and out, she's just beautiful. And our thoughts and prayers are with you, Jovita, as you continue this fight. Martha, over to you.
Well, my winner this week is Representative Betty Carter. He has participated in the clinical trials all throughout the vaccine. He's the only pharmacist in the Congress, and he has just done the clinical trial for the booster. So he's my winner this week. My loser this week is Mayor Bottoms. For obvious reasons, this unenforceable mask mandate fine. And a shout out to the ladies at Deaton Creek that came up to me while I was at lunch a couple of weeks ago to tell me they always watch me on the Georgia Gang.
Love to hear that. Love to hear from viewers. Theron, over to you.
I definitely want to add my thoughts and prayers, Lori, with you with Jovita Moore. So definitely, Jovita, we're praying for you. Hang in there. Positive time. My second winner is going to be Clark Atlanta University. I know everyone saw this week that they actually eliminated and pretty much did away with all student balances for the 2021 and 2022 year, and this was a big thing because we've been battling COVID. And my next winner is going to be DeKalb County, who last weekend and also this weekend were giving $50 gift cards away for people who would actually come and get the vaccine shot. And then also congratulations to Mayor Bottoms for going over to the Educational Leadership Institute at Clark Lane University. She'll be a lecturer there when she's done being mayor, so definitely want to make her a winner this week.
All right, Brian, over to you. We've got about a minute and 20 seconds.
Well, my winners this week are some of Georgia's Olympic athletes who have electrified these games. I saw some of the University of Georgia swimmers taking a medal this week in one of the women's competitions. Of course, you've got Brody Malone, who's now the face of men's gymnastics in America, who is from Somerville, Georgia. So the list goes on and on. There's too many to mention, but it is remarkable the proportion of athletes who are from our state, and that's a great point of pride.
It is, and it's fun to watch for sure. Okay, Darren's almost leaving us, taking off his jacket, but Bobby, you can do winners and losers.
He's ready for one more week of summer, before we put the kids back in school. I want to echo the thoughts and prayers being sent out to Jovita's family as well, and I will say that my winner is Marcus Flowers. He is the Democrat. He is a client of our firm, but he is the Democrat who's running against Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia's 14th district. Just matched her in fundraising, $1.5 million in the last 3 months. This guy's a first-time candidate and U.S. Army veteran. It's really incredible to go up against somebody like her. And we'll skip the loser for this week because I'm told we have no more time.
It's okay. We'll bring you back. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And thank you so much for watching. We will see you again next week.